cold wind sliced across the campus of Harrington State University the morning he first met her. The leaves were burning yellow, scattering like broken promises around the brick walkways. Eli Turner, a quiet senior with a mind sharp enough to cut glass, pushed open the old wooden door of the political psychology department, carrying the weight of a future he desperately needed to secure. He didn't know that inside that hallway, behind the frosted glass office door of Professor Marla Hensley, waited a disaster that would change the trajectory of his life. Eli was the kind of young man people misread. Too calm, too observant, a little too handsome in a stay-in-your-lane, don't-mess-with-me way. He wasn't rich. He didn't have connections or favors tucked in his back pocket. Everything he had, he earned, every grade, every opportunity, every inch of respect. But Professor Hensley didn't care about any of that. Her eyes found him the first day of class, lingering too long when he answered questions, following him as he took his seat, swallowing his confidence whole whenever he tried to pretend her attention meant nothing. She was powerful, well-connected, feared, even envied. She was a gatekeeper, one who enjoyed locking doors and dangling keys. And Eli was her new fixation. The trouble began subtly, compliments disguised as academic feedback. "You're brilliant, Eli, rare, I want to mentor you." Her hand brushing his arm when she passed his desk, her smile lasting a second too long. Eli tried to ignore it. He focused on his assignments, his senior thesis, his part-time job at the tutoring center. He had grown up with almost nothing, raised by a single mother working double shifts. This degree wasn't just a certificate, it was oxygen. The future depended on him finishing it. But power had a scent, and Professor Hensley breathed it in like perfume. One evening, she called him to her office under the guise of urgent feedback. He hesitated, but skipping meant retaliation. He knew how she operated. He entered her office. The blinds were drawn, the lights dim. She stood behind her desk, wearing an expression he recognized immediately as wrong. "Lock the door, Eli," she said. His heart tightened. "Professor, I..." "Lock it." Her tone cut like a blade dipped in honey. He obeyed because refusing felt dangerous. She circled him the way a predator studies prey, slow and deliberate. "You're too brilliant to waste your potential," she whispered. "I can help you get into the graduate program. I can make your future smooth. All you have to do is let me appreciate you." Eli stepped back. "Professor, I'm not comfortable with this." Her eyes narrowed. "You're refusing me." "I'm just here to learn, that's all." The rejection hit her like a slap. Her face changed, softness gone, replaced by a terrifying calm. "If you walk out that door," she said, her voice flat, "you will never graduate from Harrington State University. I promise you that." Eli froze. "You can't do that." "Oh, I can," she hissed. "You think merit is what gets people their degrees. You think hard work protects you. I decide who rises here. I decide who leaves with a diploma and who leaves in ruins." His pulse hammered. His dreams, everything he had sacrificed for, felt suddenly breakable. But something inside him snapped into place. Resolve. "Do whatever you want," he whispered. "I'm not selling myself to you." She walked closer until her face hovered inches from his. "Then I'll destroy you." The war began silently. A week later, Eli received his midterm grade, F. A paper he had spent 2 sleepless nights writing was marked, plagiarized. No explanation, no proof. He requested a meeting. She denied it. He appealed to the department. She intercepted it. Suddenly, other professors grew tense around him. Something had been whispered, something poisonous. His academic advisor, Dr. Karen Whitley, called him in. "There are concerns about your conduct," she said gently, as if speaking to someone already defeated. "Complaints about inappropriate behavior toward faculty." Eli felt the room spin. "That's not true, Professor Hensley." Whitley raised a hand. "Be careful. Accusing a senior faculty member will only make things worse." Worse. The word dug into him. Every day after that, Professor Hensley haunted his steps. She didn't need to speak to him. Her power did the talking. His assignments disappeared from the submission portal. Attendance records were mysteriously altered. His research access was revoked. One evening, after receiving yet another baseless penalty, Eli reached his breaking point. He walked across the dark campus, anger tearing through him like lightning. He wasn't going to let her win. Not by fear. Not by silence. He went to the student union, sat in a quiet corner, and opened his laptop. He began documenting everything: dates, emails, suspicious grade changes, digital logs, interactions, witnesses. He exported copies of every assignment, every request he had submitted. He saved everything to an external drive hidden inside his jacket. If she wanted war, he would give her one she didn't expect. But he wasn't ready for the next blow. 3 days later, his mother called, her voice trembling. "Eli, did you harass your professor? There's a complaint filed. They said you made her feel unsafe." He closed his eyes, destruction pressing its weight against his chest. "She filed it," he whispered. "She's lying." His mother cried softly, not because she doubted him, but because she knew the world they lived in and how much power people like Professor Hensley held. The university placed him under academic review. His graduation status was frozen. Rumors swarmed campus. He had propositioned a professor, he threatened her career, he begged her for passing grades. The lies spread like wildfire. Students he had tutored avoided him. Classmates whispered when he walked by. His future, his entire future, felt like it was burning down. But even as everything fell apart, Eli didn't break. He was silent. He was patient. He was calculating. What Professor Hensley didn't know was that he wasn't fighting alone. At the tutoring center, one of his coworkers, Lena Brooks, noticed the change in him. She sat him down one night after work. "Eli, what's going on? You look like you're carrying the whole world." He hesitated. Telling anyone felt dangerous. But when he looked into her eyes, he saw sincerity, an ally he desperately needed. So he told her everything. When he finished, Lena sat quietly, anger simmering beneath her calm expression. "She targeted you," she said. "She's abusing her power, and she thinks no one will challenge her." "No one ever has," Eli murmured. "Then let's be the first." Something in him cracked open. Relief, gratitude, hope. He didn't cry often, but in that moment he almost did. They worked in secret. Lena helped gather testimonies from students who had witnessed Professor Hensley's strange behavior, subtle comments, uncomfortable encounters, unfair grading. Some were too scared to speak publicly, but they allowed their statements to be documented anonymously. A former teaching assistant, now working at a tech company, confirmed via email that she had left the department because of Hensley's patterns. Another student admitted they had once received an A only after spending hours alone in the professor's office, an experience they never wanted to think about again. The pattern wasn't new. Eli wasn't the first. He was simply the first to refuse her. And that refusal had threatened her ego more than anything else. By the end of the month, Eli's documented file was thick enough to crack the foundations she stood on. But documents weren't enough. He needed undeniable evidence, evidence she couldn't twist. And he got it on a night he would never forget. He remembered sitting in his dorm room when his phone lit up with a message from her. "Meet me in my office. Now we need to talk about your future. Prof. Hensley." A trap. A threat. A final attempt to break him. He wasn't going alone. Eli walked across campus, his hands steady despite the storm roaring in his chest. Lena followed at a distance, ready. Inside the office, the lights were low again, the blinds closed. She approached him with predatory grace, her perfume thick and suffocating. "If you apologize," she said softly, "I can make all this disappear. Your grades, the harassment report, your graduation, your future is still in my hands." Eli stared at her, silent. Her hand grazed his chest. "All you have to do is say yes." He stepped back. "No." Her face darkened. "Then you'll regret it." It happened fast. She raised her voice, twisting the story, claiming he had advanced on her, threatening to call campus security if he didn't leave. What she didn't realize was that Lena, from the hallway, was recording the entire interaction through the crack of the door, her phone capturing every word, every gesture, every lie. Her downfall was sealed in those minutes. When Eli walked out, Hensley glaring daggers behind him, he didn't feel fear this time. He felt power.
The days that followed felt like the calm before a hurricane, quiet enough to breathe, but heavy enough to warn Eli that destruction was coming. Professor Hensley moved through the department with sharpened confidence, convinced she had broken him. She submitted more complaints against him, painted him as unstable, manipulative, dangerous. Faculty meetings buzzed with the poison she dripped into them. But she didn't know that the world she built so carefully was already crumbling beneath her feet. Eli and Lena spent nights piecing together everything they had gathered: witness statements, saved emails, grade logs showing tampering, security footage timestamps proving he hadn't been in certain buildings on days she claimed he had harassed her. And the crown jewel, the recording Lena captured from the hallway, the one where Hensley practically confessed her intentions, her threats, her manipulation. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to expose her pattern. Still, Eli hesitated. Not because he doubted the case. Not because he was afraid of her. But because revenge wasn't victory, not yet. He wanted justice. He wanted to graduate. He wanted his life back. And he wanted everyone to know the truth, that he never deserved the hell she put him through. A week later, Eli received an email from the dean's office: mandatory disciplinary hearing, allegations of misconduct, failure to attend will result in immediate expulsion. It was happening. The showdown she had engineered. He stared at the email with a strange mixture of fear and clarity. This was what she wanted: to corner him publicly, to humiliate him, to make an example out of him. But she didn't know that this hearing would become her downfall. The morning of the hearing was grey and heavy, the sky threatening rain. Eli walked into the administrative building with Lena beside him. His jaw was tight, his heartbeat steady. He wasn't the broken student she thought he was. He wasn't walking in to be destroyed. He was walking in to end her. Inside the conference room, the panel sat around a long wooden table. Professors, administrators, and the dean, all wearing expressions that already judged him guilty. Across from them sat the woman who had orchestrated his downfall. Professor Hensley looked poised, immaculate, dangerously calm. Her eyes sparkled with triumph when she saw him. "There you are," her expression seemed to say. "Ready to be crushed." He took his seat. The dean began the meeting with a dry, rehearsed voice. "We are here to address complaints filed by Professor Marla Hensley regarding student misconduct. Prof. Hensley, you may begin." She stood slowly, her posture dripping with a confidence that made Eli's skin crawl. She delivered her speech like a monologue she'd practiced for years: how Eli supposedly harassed her, threatened her, begged for special treatment, how she feared for her safety, how she had tried to guide him academically, only to be manipulated. She painted herself as a victim with such elegance that the room softened toward her. People nodded, pens tapped, pity filled the air. When she finished, she offered Eli a thin, satisfied smile. "Game over." But then the dean turned to him. "Mr. Turner, your response." Eli stood. There was no begging. No shaking. Just truth. "I didn't want to bring this here," he began, his voice even. "But I was given no choice. Professor Hensley didn't just target me. She's been doing this for years. And she didn't file accusations against me because she felt unsafe. She filed them because I refused to give her what she wanted." A shift rippled across the room, unease, doubt. Professor Hensley scoffed loudly. "This is exactly what I meant. He twists everything. He's delusional." Eli placed a USB drive on the table. "This contains audio and written evidence, time-stamped, verified, backed by witness statements." The dean frowned. "What evidence?" He nodded to Lena, who handed out printed copies of the documented file. Eli spoke steadily. "Thank you for giving me the floor. I'll let the truth speak for itself." And then he played the recording. The room changed. Professor Hensley's voice poured into the speakers, Her flirtation disguised as mentorship, her threat when Eli refused her, her manipulative tone telling him his future depended on obeying her, her promise that he would never graduate unless he accepted her offer, her anger when he denied her. Silence swallowed the room like an earthquake. The dean's pen slipped from his fingers. A professor choked on her breath. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Hensley went pale. "That's taken out of context," she screamed suddenly, rising from her seat. "He manipulated the audio. This is fabricated." Lena stepped forward calmly. "I recorded it myself, at the door. I can provide the original file, and the timestamp matches the building's hallway camera." Hensley stared at her, stunned. "You little..." The dean slammed his palm on the table. "That's enough." The hearing transformed instantly. Questions fired at Hensley from every direction. Why did her grading history show irregularities? Why were multiple students reporting the same patterns? Why did she access the submission portal outside normal hours? Why did she file contradictory statements? Sweat beaded on her forehead. Her voice trembled as she tried to defend herself, but every lie tangled her deeper. The panel wasn't looking at Eli anymore, they were looking at her. And she was falling apart. When the dean addressed Eli again, his voice was softer, almost ashamed. "Mr. Turner, do you have any final remarks?" Eli breathed slowly, meeting the eyes of every person in that room. "I came here to learn, that's all I ever wanted. I worked hard for my future. My only mistake was thinking that integrity was enough to protect me from people who abuse their power. But I refused to give in. I refused to stay silent. I refused to be what she wanted me to be." He glanced at Hensley, but only briefly. "I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for fairness." The dean nodded. A long, heavy nod. "We will reconvene after reviewing everything. Mr. Turner, you may go." He walked out of the room feeling lighter than he had in months. Behind him, Professor Hensley was still shouting. But the walls of her kingdom had already collapsed. 2 days later, the decision came. A formal letter from the university. A single sheet of paper that ended the war. Professor Marla Hensley was terminated effective immediately. Her tenure revoked. Her privileges stripped. Her record forwarded to the University Ethics Board for national review. And then, at the bottom of the letter, "All accusations against Eli Turner have been dismissed with prejudice. His academic standing is restored. He is cleared to graduate." Eli sat on a bench outside the library, staring at the letter with shaking hands, not because he doubted it, but because the weight of months of suffering finally loosened its grip. Lena ran across the courtyard, breathless. "Did they?" He handed her the letter. She read it, then threw her arms around him in relief. "You did it," she whispered. "You actually did it." But Eli shook his head softly. "We did it." For the first time since the nightmare began, he allowed himself to breathe, really breathe, deep and full. The truth had won. His future was his again. And the woman who tried to destroy him now had to live with the ashes of her own making. Graduation day arrived bright and golden, sunlight pouring over the campus like a blessing he had earned with every scar. Eli stood in his gown, adjusting his cap as the ceremony began. Students surrounded him, some nodding respectfully, others offering quiet apologies for believing the rumors. He didn't need their validation, but he accepted their recognition. When his name was called, he walked across the stage with a calm dignity that made the dean's eyes soften. He had survived. He had risen. He had reclaimed everything she tried to tear from him. And then something unexpected happened. After the ceremony, Lena found him near the fountain, holding 2 cups of iced coffee. "I figured you'd want one," she said, handing him the cup. He smiled, genuinely something he had forgotten how to do. "Thanks." "You know," she said slowly, "you didn't just beat her, you changed something here. People are talking, students who were scared to speak before, they're coming forward. You didn't just save yourself, Eli, you saved others." He looked at her, his heart swelling. "I just wanted to do what's right." "And you did," she brushed a strand of hair from her face. "So, what now?" graduation gown fluttering in the wind, diploma in hand, Eli turned toward the campus, the place that nearly destroyed him but also proved something important. He was unbreakable. "I start my internship next week," he said, "and after that, who knows?" She nudged him lightly. "Wherever you go, you're going to be unstoppable." A small smile curved his lips. "I hope so." He glanced once more at the academic building across the lawn, the building where he had been threatened, cornered, humiliated, the place where he had been told he would never graduate. He didn't feel anger. He didn't feel fear. He felt triumph, because he had walked through the fire and come out stronger. Professor Hensley had tried to destroy his future to satisfy her ego. But he had taken everything back, and more. She lost her career, her reputation, her power. Eli gained clarity, resilience, and a victory deeper than vengeance. His revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It wasn't cruel. It was justice, pure, undeniable justice. And that was the kind of revenge that echoed the longest. He walked away from the campus with Lena beside him, sunlight in his eyes, a new life waiting just beyond the gates. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. He had already won.